My name is Laura, and as an estate planner, I understand wills. But I wasn't prepared for my own father's. The lawyer's office felt suffocating, tense, and quiet. My mother, Patricia, was dabbing at perfectly dry eyes a masterpiece of performed grief. My sister Brooke wasn't even pretending. She was checking her reflection in the dark screen of her phone. The lawyer cleared his throat, the sound unnaturally loud. And my primary residence, the family home on Elmwood, I leave solely to my daughter Laura. Patricia's head snapped up, her grief vanishing. Brooke's phone clattered onto the polished table. The masks didn't just slip, they shattered. Have you ever felt like the invisible one in your own family? Let me know your story down in the comments. Frank must have been confused. Patricia's voice sliced through the silence, cold and sharp. She was already recovering, already spinning a new narrative. He must have been confused. He meant for the house to go to Brooke, obviously. She has a family. She needs the space. Laura, you'll sign it over, of course. My sister Brooke finally looked up from her phone, her expression, one of bored entitlement. Obviously, Laura, it's the right thing to do. I'll have my lawyer draft the papers this afternoon. They both stared at me, that familiar heavy expectation in the air. They saw the quiet Laura, the dependable Laura, the family scapegoat. They expected me to nod to apologize for the inconvenience to fold like I always had. I didn't cry. I didn't argue. I didn't even look at them. I turned my gaze to the lawyer, Mr. Davies, who looked profoundly uncomfortable. Mr. Davies, I said, my voice perfectly level, would you please read the addendum, the one from my Aunt Teresa? A flash of panic, real and unfiltered, crossed my mother's face. An addendum. What addendum? Teresa has no part in this. Mr. Davies cleared his throat and picked up a second sealed envelope. This is a personal letter from Teresa Frank's sister, he said. It was notarized and attached to the will with instructions to be read after the primary contents. It reads, he put on his glasses. I know Frank has left Laura the house. I want it known legally and personally that this was my dying wish. Frank and I agreed. This is not a gift. It is a repayment. The room went so still I could hear Brooke's sharp, sudden inhale. Mr. Davies continued, this is to balance the scales for the $80,000 Frank took from my accounts 5 years ago to fund Brooke's failed lifestyle business, a debt that was never repaid to me. Brooke made a small, strangled sound. The lawyer read the final line. Brooke has already had her inheritance in cash. This house is Laura's. The scales are now balanced. The silence in that room was no longer just quiet. It was heavy, suffocating. Brooke looked like she'd been slapped, her face a mask of disbelief. My mother was sheet white, her mouth opening and closing, but no sound coming out. They weren't just shocked. They were exposed. For 20 years, they had operated on a simple, unspoken system. Brooke was the golden child, and I was the resilient one. Resilient is just a polite word for scapegoat. It's the name they give to the child who learns to absorb the family's dysfunction. When Brooke failed her high school classes, I was the one told to help her, which meant staying up until 2 in the morning tutoring her while my own grades suffered. When she crashed her first car, the one they bought her for her 16th birthday, my savings, the money I'd earned working at the library, was borrowed to cover the insurance deductible. I never saw a dime of it back. When my father Frank got sick 2 years ago, Brooke was just too busy with her influencer events to help. So I was the one who managed his appointments. I was the one who paid his overdue bills. I was the one who held his hand. And I was the one who held Aunt Teresa's hand as she passed in that quiet hospital room that smelled like antiseptic and regret. People always ask, why did you stay? Why did you let them treat you that way for so long? They don't understand the invisible chains. When you grow up in a system like that, you learn that compliance is survival. You are trained, conditioned to find your only value in being the resilient one. You build a prison for yourself out of keeping the peace, and you mistake the absence of conflict for the presence of love. I wasn't just Laura, I was a role. I was the dependable daughter, the family shock absorber. And stepping out of that role saying no, it felt like dying. Aunt Teresa was the only one who saw it. "He's doing it to you too, isn't he?" she'd whispered to me, her voice thin as paper. "Your father, using one child as a trophy and the other as a tool." I didn't know what to say. She gripped my hand. That money he took from me, the 80,000, he told me it was a bridge loan. Then he said it was for medical expenses. It was for Brooke's business, Laura. That silly clothing line that never even launched. He gave your sister $80,000 and told me to keep quiet about it. I remembered her final words to me. "I'm changing my will, Laura. I'm leaving you the house. It's not a gift. It's justice. It's time someone finally balanced the scales." We left the lawyer's office in complete silence. Trevor didn't speak as we walked to the car, and I was grateful for it. There was nothing to say. I got in, buckled my seatbelt, and before Trevor even started the engine, my phone exploded. It was a wildfire in the family group chat. The first message was from Brooke. "You can't prove that money was for me. Aunt Teresa was old and sick. You manipulated her. You twisted her words." Seconds later, my mother, Patricia Laura, "You have created a permanent wound in this family. You need to call us and apologize for this humiliation immediately. This is not how we raised you." Apologize? For what? For the truth, I didn't reply. I just stared out the window as the city blurred past. By the time we got home, the escalation had gone public. Brooke, true to her influencer brand, posted a long, tearful Instagram story. She was in her car, mascara smudged, looking artfully devastated. "I don't know what I'm going to do," she cried to her followers. I'm trying to grieve my father, and now I'm being attacked by my own sister over money. Some people are just born heartless. Please just send good vibes." I used to wonder how Brooke could be so cruel, so detached from reality. Now I finally understood. Her entire identity wasn't a person. It was a shell, an illusion built from my sacrifices and our father's theft. She didn't have success. She was given it. She didn't earn love. She demanded it. Her value wasn't in being. It was in having. Having the best, having the attention, having the money, having the house. That will. And Aunt Teresa's letter didn't just threaten her finances. They threatened her entire existence. She wasn't just fighting for a house. She was fighting for the illusion that she was special, the one who deserved it all without question. My phone buzzed again. Another text from my mother. "Brooke is falling apart. Your aunt's letter was a lie, and you know it. Teresa was a bitter old woman. You need to fix this, Laura. You need to make this right. Apologize to your sister and sign over the house." The narrative was set. The spin was in motion. Aunt Teresa was the bitter manipulator, and I was the heartless, greedy villain who was tearing the family apart. They weren't just shocked. They were organized. They were trying to erase the truth before it even had a chance to settle. I showed Trevor the Instagram story. He read it, then read the string of texts from my mother, his expression unreadable. "They're trying to spin it," I said, my voice quiet. "Make me the villain. Make Brooke the victim. That's the only play they have left." He didn't say anything for a moment. He just closed my phone and set it down. Then he went to his briefcase and pulled out his laptop. "You're right. That's their play. But they're playing checkers, and they've just entered a chess tournament." Trevor, my fiancé, wasn't just my ally. He was a partner at one of the top law firms in the city. Right now, he said, booting up the laptop, they think your only weapon is that letter. They think this is just a family drama they can win on social media. It's time to show them it's a legal matter. He pulled up a copy of my father's entire estate file, which Mr. Davies had forwarded to us. As executor, he said your only duty is to the facts of the estate. So let's look at the facts. We spent the next hour reviewing every document, the will, the addendum from Aunt Teresa, and my father's financial statements. And that's when I saw it. As an estate planner, I should have seen it sooner, but I'd been too caught up in the emotional shock. Trevor, I said, pointing to the screen, look at this. The will stipulates that Brooke receives a cash inheritance of $50,000 separate from the house and other assets. Right, he said, following my logic. And Aunt Teresa's letter, which is legally part of the will, establishes an $80,000 debt that Brooke owed to the estate, designated as an advance on her inheritance. I did the math out loud. $50,000 in inheritance minus $80,000 in debt. She doesn't just get nothing, Trevor. She owes the estate. She owes the estate $30,000. A slow, grim smile spread across Trevor's face. Well, that certainly clarifies things. He started typing. The sound of the keys was sharp and precise. He didn't draft an emotional letter. He drafted a legal notice. It was addressed to Miss Brooke and Miss Patricia as cohabitants and interested parties. It clearly outlined the contents of the will, the legal standing of the notarized addendum, and the final accounting. It stated that per the terms of the estate, Brooke was required to repay the outstanding $30,000. It gave her 30 days to contact his firm to arrange a formal repayment plan. What happens if she doesn't? I asked. Then Trevor said, we file a lien on her assets, her condo, her car, her bank accounts, anything and everything until the estate is made whole. He printed the letter on his firm's official letterhead. We didn't just mail it. We sent it via signed courier with copies to my mother's address and to Brooke's condo. This wasn't an argument. This wasn't a spin. This was a formal, legal, and unavoidable demand. The family drama was over. The accounting had just begun. The demand letter was a declaration of war, and they received it. It worked. 2 days later, my receptionist buzzed my office intercom. Laura, there's a Patricia here to see you. She doesn't have an appointment, but she's insisting. Before I could even respond, my office door flew open and my mother stormed in. She looked frantic, her hair out of place, her eyes red. This wasn't the composed matriarch from the lawyer's office. This was a woman who had lost control. You have to stop this, she said, her voice a harsh whisper. She didn't even say hello. She just barged into my professional space, demanding, Laura, please, you are ruining your sister. You're destroying this family. I didn't stand up. I didn't offer her a seat. I just looked at her. I'm not doing anything, Mom. I'm settling an estate. As an estate planner, I'm sure you understand the legal obligation to settle all outstanding debts. This isn't business, she shrieked, and I saw my receptionist flinch in the hallway. This is family. That $80,000. It was a gift. Teresa loved Brooke. She would never have wanted this. Then she should have documented it as a gift, I said, my voice cold clinical. Instead, she notarized it as a debt that as executor I am legally required to collect. You're tearing this family apart over money. No, I said, and my voice was dangerously quiet. The anger was there, but it wasn't hot. It was surgical. You tore this family apart years ago. You tore it apart every time you decided one daughter was a prop to show off and the other was a piggy bank to break open when you needed something. You and Dad taught her that actions have no consequences. I'm just the first one. to finally deliver the bill. She stared at me, her face crumbling. The anger was gone, replaced by a desperate, ugly panic. This was the part I'd seen before, the part where she realized aggression wouldn't work, so she'd pivot to guilt. "What do you want, Laura?" she whispered, tears suddenly welling in her eyes. "Just tell me what you want. Do you want us to beg? Is that it? After everything we've done for you, you want to see us beg?" I stood up slowly and walked around my desk. I didn't walk toward her. I walked to my office door. "I want you to leave," I said. She didn't move. "Please," she whispered again, the word thick with manipulation. "Brooke will be ruined. She has nothing. She'll lose her condo. She'll have to sell her car. Please, Laura. She's your sister." I looked at her, this woman I had spent 31 years trying to please, this woman I had craved approval from, and I felt nothing, just a vast, cold quiet. "That's not my problem anymore," I said. "You have 60 seconds to leave my office, or I'll have security escort you from the building." "You wouldn't." I just looked at her. "Goodbye, Mom." I shut the door, leaving her standing in the hallway, and I locked it. I heard a single muffled sob, and then the sound of her heels retreating down the hall. I went back to my desk, my hands shaking, but not from fear. It was the tremor of a final necessary amputation. The fallout was swift, and it was silent. There were no more angry phone calls, no more tearful ambushes at my office, just the quiet, methodical clicking of lawyers communicating on our behalf. Brooke couldn't pay the $30,000. Of course she couldn't. The lifestyle she'd curated on Instagram, the perfect lattes, the weekend trips, the designer bags, it was all a performance funded by our father's theft and my silence. To settle the debt with the estate, she was forced to sell her new car, the one she'd bought just before Dad died. She had to empty her savings, the accounts that were supposed to be for her future. The family was broken, not by my actions, but by the simple, unavoidable truth. It had shattered under the weight of its own greed. A month later, the house was officially transferred to my name, free and clear. The first night Trevor and I stayed there, we didn't bring any furniture. We just brought a bottle of wine and 2 glasses and sat on the hardwood floor in the empty living room. The air smelled like old wood and dust and peace. It didn't feel like a victory. It just felt quiet, earned. I found an old photo album in the attic a few days later, one I hadn't seen in years. Tucked in the very back, past all the posed, perfect pictures of Brooke's dance recitals and my mother's flawless Christmases, was a single faded photograph. It was me and Aunt Teresa at a county fair. I was 9 years old, holding a cheap, oversized blue ribbon for a pie I'd baked. She was looking at me, really looking at me, with a smile I hadn't seen in years, a real one. A smile that wasn't a performance. I took that one photo out of the sticky yellowed plastic and placed it on the mantel of my new fireplace. It was the only thing from the past I wanted to keep, the only part of my history that wasn't a transaction. This whole story, it's for you, the one who always feels like you're on the edge, looking in, the one who was taught that your resilience was a virtue when really it was just a tool for your own exploitation. Your worth is not determined by how much you can endure for others. You are not the supporting cast in someone else's story. You are the entire story. It is never too late to fire the director, tear up the script, and build your own stage.